Today we are going to study formula in mathematics. In mathematics, formula is a group of symbols that makes a mathematical statement. For example, A is equal to 3B is a mathematical statement using the symbols A is equal to A and B. So this is a mathematical statement, or it is a formula. Formula for finding the perimeter of a rectangle is equal to twice into length plus breadth. This is again a formula. Or we could take another example of a formula is speed is equal to distance upon time. That is another formula. So these all are made up of symbols and they form an equation. All these statements are mathematical statements which form an equation or a group of to make a mathematical statement or form equations are called formulas. An important concept in maths regarding the formulas is, which is a vital concept that permeates all our work in algebra, is of balancing the two sides of an equation. Before we go on how to change the subject or what is subject of a formula, we have to revise this concept that if A is equal to B, then all work in algebra is of balancing the two sides, which means that whatever we do to this one side, we must do the similar thing to the other side. For example, if we add 3 to A, then to balance this equation, we must add another 3 to B. Or if A is equal to B and we are doing subtracting 4 from A, then we must subtract 4 from B. Similarly, if we subtract 5 from B, then we must subtract, to balance this equation, 5 from A too. Doing this, A remains equal to B. So this is an important concept in algebra which we need to remember. Now, what we need to study is how do we change and what is the subject of a formula. Changing the subject of a formula is our next topic. And how do we change the subject of a formula? To understand this, take an example of the formula we had done earlier, where speed is equal to distance upon time. Here, if we are given values of distance and time, if we are given the distance and we are given the time, then we need to find the speed. So speed forms the subject of the formula, which is the unknown value. But in another case, if we are to find the distance, we are given speed and we are given time and we need to find the distance. So distance becomes our unknown value. To find the distance, we have to make distance as the subject of the formula, which means to make distance as the subject of the formula, we rearrange these symbols, we rearrange the formula to find D. And let's see how we do it. Now D is divided by T, so we need to take T on your left hand side. To do that, we do as we had done it earlier, we do the same thing to both the sides, which means we will multiply T to remove T, and similarly we multiply S by T as well. And then T and T gets cancelled. T divided by T is 1 and you get S into T is equal to D. Speed times time is equal to distance, or distance is equal to speed into time. Here distance becomes the subject. Now you can put in values of speed and time which are given to you, and then find the distance that you need to find, which was an unknown value. So D becomes your subject. Let's do another example. Say x is equal to y plus z, and you need to make y as the subject. In this you are given, which means that you have the value of x and z given to you, and you need to find y. To make this as your y as the subject, you need to remove z. To do this, you will now there is a positive z, so you subtract z here. Now since you've subtracted z from the right hand side, you do the same from the left hand side, and z and z get cancelled, and you get x minus z is equal to y, or y becomes on the right, comes on the right hand side and is equal to x minus z. Y becomes the subject. We revise it once again. You were given x is equal to y plus z. Make y as the subject, which means we have the values of x and z, and y needs to is the unknown value. So in doing this, because we have positive z here, we subtract z from y, but because we have subtracted from the right hand side, we subtracted from the left hand side as well, and we get x negative z, y positive and negative z get cancelled, and you get x negative z equal to y, or y becomes the subject, which is equal to x minus z. Take another example of is u is equal to v minus w. Right now u is the subject, but we want to make w as the subject, which means we have the values of u and v, and we need to find w. Now to find w as the subject, you have to let's see, there's a negative w here and v is positive, which means u is equal to v. As v is positive, you will subtract v from this. Because you have subtracted v here on the right hand side, you subtract v to balance this equation, which means you will get u negative v and negative v gets cancelled, v and negative v is cancelled, and you get u minus negative v equal to negative w. this is negative W. To make the subject positive, yes, you multiply negative W by negative. Because you have multiplied it with negative, naturally to balance the equation, you multiply the left hand side also by negative. And you get negative U, negative into negative is positive, positive V is equal to positive W, or W becomes the subject and you get V minus U as the formula. So this is clear. Now we will do exercise worksheet number 1 to practice changing the subject of the formula.